Last year, I bought this Eclipse in order to take it on a road trip, which you guys just watched all the way from here in Virginia out to Moab, Utah. And I had really high hopes for this car, but at one very particular discernible point, I realized that I was not going to be using this chassis long term, even though the engine and drivetrain are still great.
Oh my God, dude.
So what we are going to be doing in the span of 3 days, starting today and finishing on Sunday, is transferring everything from this car over to this chassis. This is a Eagle Talon chassis, and it is functionally identical to this Eclipse, but it does not have rust. Let's get started. So if you haven't seen underneath this car, or if it's just been a while, we've got some really spectacular stuff underneath it here that really helped convince me that it was just better to go to a fresh chassis. First of all, the previous owner did this all-wheel drive swap. I'm not gonna rag on the previous owner all video, but yeah, it could just have been done better. And it was done by Mitsubishi on that car. We've also got some devastating rust. This is my hands going into the cabin of the car. I mean, all of this is just excruciating to look at. Like, come here, Cam. Look at that. That's just brutal. Now, if we compare like this pinch weld where we have the jacks mounted to, let's go over to the Talon chassis. Whoa, look at that. We've got obviously a little bit of surface rust, but the pinch welds are beautifully intact. This is just gonna be such a better place to start with a car as opposed to that Pennsylvania chassis. The big things are that we're gonna have to fix on this car. As you can see, the trunk has been cut out. The trunk floor has been cut out of this car. It looks like a big deal, but that should not actually really be a big deal. We've got obviously a little bit of rust starting in some places, but it's just starting. I'm gonna get my little sanding disc and I'm going to fix this stuff and cover it with primer before we even start. So I'm gonna do that right now. All right, so we have eliminated the vast majority of what little rust there was on the Talon shell. And now my first accomplice of the weekend is here. Got Kung Fu Kenny all the way up from North Carolina.
What's going on?
He's back. Last time he was here, he was tuning the Eclipse, the last 2 times he was here. And in between there, you swapped the head on the road trip.
Yeah.
So you're probably sick of this car already.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's giving me the same amount of work that all of them do. It's always something.
So now we can actually just get rid of this chassis entirely.
Good. Starting with the engine's cool. We're gonna flip it over, check these bearings, get the rod bolts stretched to what they need to be, and that will ensure the engine healthy.
Sweet. Let's do it. Wait, you know what? We should do one thing before we do this.
What's that?
Let's fire it up. One last send off, the final running of the GSTX.
Fire old rust bucket up.
Old Rusty, yeah.
Fire old rusty. Yes, sir. Well, she still sounds good.
She does.
This is probably the 500th DSM that Kenny has pulled a motor and transmission from. So this is a cakewalk for him.
You did not just taste that.
No, I didn't taste it. I'm not gonna taste it. All right.
Personally, the whole process is very reminiscent of pulling a drivetrain out of an Evo, so I'm not completely useless.
First time I put safety glasses on to take off lug nuts.
Don't try this at home. Cha-ching. I need a big hammer though. This hammer weak as shit. This the one I want. Let's see if it worked though.
Just for reference, on the way back from the Utah road trip, we drove through snow, ice for 4 or 5 states, and I was driving directly behind salt trucks, and I never cleaned the car after the trip. I mean, how much worse can it get, right?
You told me to tune it slow.
All right, dude, forget it. Put
You
it
know
out
what
of
you
your mind.
know what you said,
I
bro?
want to see a big 510
Ew!
minimum.
510. I'm trying to break the transmission. I recently did this
How are we looking? Not too bad, not too bad.
Let it right there.
Yeah.
She's alive! Well,
Yes, sir!
this is notoriously called the crank walk bolt. So what happens is, when you start making power, you upgrade the clutch. If you don't have this bolt in here, what happens is the transmission and the engine, the block, where they meet, starts to flex.
Yeah.
It does like this.
Yeah.
And so a lot of time it causes wear on one side of the thrust. So it is vital to have this in here to keep everything even when you press the clutch in. Kind of don't want to damage it. Be so nervous. Take a deep breath. There you go. We're gonna have to pick this up. You got to? You good?
No, no.
Too heavy?
Yeah, I can't do that.
Come on, man.
No, I haven't been to the gym
Do
in
some
forever.
push-ups and then let's get
Then
this
I'm gonna be
motherfucker.
more tired.
You're right.
What no one tells you about the 4G63 is that iron blocks are extremely heavy.
Oh, my leg. Where's that pin?
Now that it's on the engine stand though, Kenny and I can begin stripping the motor down bare.
It warms my heart so much to finally be taking off this manifold setup and this turbo. I was waiting the whole road trip for this tubular manifold to just crack and start leaking. Amazingly, it did not. Probably because I wasn't beating on the car.
My car is fast because I got gauge pods.
We got something a lot better in store.
Pulling off this stock intake manifold on a 7-bolt. Ah, yes, sir. This was Mitsubishi's way of saying, hey, let's make the car more peppy. Smaller turbo, smaller ports in the intake manifold, smaller throttle body, was all for response and drivability.
All right, Kenny, what are we gonna see under here?
I thought you were gonna talk.
Oh, I have nothing to say.
We're gonna see what bearings they use because they have ARP main studs in the block. If the block hasn't been line honed with these main studs, we're gonna have some intolerances.
What are we looking for?
The main bearings may be oversized, and that'll be an indication that they did line on it.
0.25.
0.25? Yeah, they cut something. Look how thick that is.
Yeah.
The backing of it is like super thick, so it's super oversized. 0.25, bro, that's a thick bearing. Look at it.
This meant I could start digging through my huge pile of parts for this build. In preparation, I'd ordered every single size of rod and main bearing made because we just didn't know what we'd find in the block.
I don't like that. I mean, it ran fine, but I mean,
Yeah, I would rather have a stock crank, honestly.
yeah.
It was right about this time that our second DSM expert arrived, Paul Jaquish of Rival Racing. Paul was cool enough to drive up from South Carolina to get elbows deep in this chassis swap, but there will be more about him in episode 2. This was my first time meeting Paul, and as he and I chatted and got to know each other, Kenny got to know a bit more about my engine.
Hey, hey. Here you go. Look at that bearing right there.
Plan on what to
Oh
do.
my, what? Bro,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
Where did this material go? Which one did that come off of?
This one.
Looks better than I expected it to after looking
Yeah.
at the
Look at
bearing.
that, dude.
Jesus.
It took a chunk out of that.
Yeah, where did this go?
Is that,
That's
is
what I
that
was-
spot on there?
Did it
That's what I
say
was
on?
looking to see if it was.
We did pull some bearings out that were damaged. That's still under investigation. But I cleaned up the crank, cleaned up the journals, cleaned up the block. They're not like race bearings or what came out of it weren't race bearings, they're just aluminum. And so I'm assuming that it got hot where the crank actually touches that side of the bearing and pulled it out, pretty much wore it down. It was pretty bad.
The following morning, even more DSM degenerates showed up. Jesse and Chris arrived from up north, fully vaccinated for tetanus and ready to work on a Pennsylvania car.
So when I invited all these guys down here, I knew it was gonna be chaos, but this is completely insane. We've got Jesse and Paul that are just stripping everything out of that chassis. We've got Kenny who's rebuilding the bottom end right now. We've got Chris over here fabricating and prepping the new chassis. And I thought I was gonna get to work on my own car, but I just have to run around filming stuff with Cam. Total chaos. My dad is here for some reason. It's Chinese New Year, so he's going crazy. We got Devin from Fortune Auto just here to hang out, just getting his cameo appearance in the video. I mean, great energy, having a ton of fun, but this is completely chaotic.
Oh, by the way, can I store your bottle of water and put PP in?
No worries, brother.
So don't just try not to drink it.
Just put it back where it was at, because when I get thirsty, I'm needing to. It's three. I mean, it's still within spec. It's actually not bad. So that means they actually cut the crank. You know, good. That good. Okay, machine shop, come through. Who is this? What machine shop is this? Yeah, they dead on. Just need to be retaught, baby. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. It's a little tighter than 2. So anywhere from 18 10,000s to 2,000s. Man, that's perfect. That's great oil pressure.
That's in spec.
Yeah, that's in spec. What do you want to know, Ben?
The last year DSM was 97.
So technically, if you drive a 99, 98 DSM, quote unquote DSM, it is technically a MMC vehicle. It's not really considered a DSM.
So you're saying that my car, which is a 99, is not.
It's a Mitsubishi Motors Company.
So you're saying this whole time I thought I had a DSM and I had a
Well,
MMC.
That's being stickler.
Yeah, that is very Ben.
I try and remain productive after the bombshell that I've been referring to the Eclipse by the wrong name in every single video it's appeared in.
If you don't know much about these old DSMs, on all of these DSMs, running DSM. Every DSM first DSM, DSM.
Meanwhile, Kenny is ready to get the entire bottom end of the 4G back together, and is also ready to share his thoughts on Mitsubishi's infamous crank walk.
There's a lot of factors that come into play when it comes to crank walk. Heavy pressure plates, which I feel like is a myth. Crank walk bolt that's on the back, installation and clearance issues, and oil changes. So what Mitsubishi decided to do was redesign the blocks, and now they have split thrust bearings, right? So the thrusts are now separate. They sit on the groove on the block side. You know, they sitting there just like that. I'm gonna put some assembly lube on it. No more crank walk, okay? It's that easy. We're gonna go in sequence and do 30, then go back to 60 for the mains. And the crank's gonna be good to go. And I'll get these rods ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna measure them, stretch the rod bolts, and the block shall be done.
The car came with receipts from the machine shop that built this engine for the previous owner, and Kenny was concerned that some of the torque specs they noted for the rod bolts wouldn't be enough to stretch the bolt sufficiently.
These rod bolts were at 46, and let's check the stretch on 46. All right, it's like 46.2. Let's stretch it and see how much it stretched. So this is Eagle, it has Eagle rods in it, and what they require for their rod bolts, all right? So you have a 716 ARP 2000. So with that torque, you should hit that stretch.
Okay.
Sometimes you gotta go more, depending. 75 foot-pounds.
Yeah.
The machine paperwork said 46 foot-pounds, what they torqued it to. At 46 foot-pounds, the stretch was like 32 10,000ths. You see what's required.
Yeah, so basically it was not stretched enough previously.
Exactly. 75 should put us where we need to be. 68 thousandths is the max.
With the new bearings in and the rod bolts now properly stretched, Kenny began cleaning the oil pan, which led him to find where the material from our damaged rod bearing had finally wound up.
Oh, boy, shit got metal flakes in it. Hey, where the bearing material go? In the oil pan. It's in here. Yeah. The last bearing that we took out, rod bearing, had like the center section gone.
Dude, this thing did from
But this
here
was
to Colorado
this
and
was
back.
professionally built.
Moab.
It should be good now.
Well, yeah, because you built it.
Yeah, I'm gonna send it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, keep watching it. There's a shit all over the place.
Yeah, I'm about to get the air gun.
The motor is all back together now, and the upgrades can finally begin. My Evo set 3 class records using an extremely high-flowing header from an Australian company called Echanique. And they've actually made me promise to stop doing an Australian accent when I talk about their product. This is the cast manifold for the Evo 1 through 3, which conveniently fits up on an Eclipse or Talon as well, because their motors are all the same. This fully stainless steel manifold is outfitted with a low mount V-band for a standard rotation turbo, along with a wastegate flange. And best of all, it's fully designed in Australia with a lifetime warranty. Sorry, I got carried away.
So this is the new turbo, the Zona Rota 5757S with the X3C housing.
The crown jewel on this engine will be the Zona XR5757S turbo from Zona Rotor. The Eclipse, Talon, I guess now, was and is a street car for me, which means I'm looking for fun and drivability over all other factors. With Zona's proprietary ultra-high flow turbine wheel and this gigantic X3C housing, this small package is capable of flowing 60 pounds per minute and 600 horsepower. The new stainless steel bearing housing saves half a pound over previous constructions, and all of this unit was designed, machined, and assembled in the US.
We're gonna try to put it on and get a nice little shot and check everything out. Might be having. It's close. Yeah, try it like that. Can Jesse, where you at with the gun, Jesse?
What?
Where you at with the gun, Jesse?
Nobody told me nothing.
God almighty.
Nobody told me a thing. I'm sitting over here doing freight line.
We're trying to be in unison here, Jesse.
Yeah, it's probably good. We don't need to drive it home or anything.
As far as it goes back. No, this
No,
is like a
there's
little.
a little notch on the block.
Like with a balance shaft.
Oh, this is the balance shaft.
It looks good like that, baby. It look good like that, baby. I like it.
On the next episode of the DSM chassis swap, the entire engine and drivetrain get swapped into the new car. Oh, ow. Mark falls in love with the Talon.
Oh,
And I come up with the perfect name for the new project.
GSTSIX.
I'm not even gonna try. Like,
GSTSIX.
I'm already confused.